So the sector-specific variant of enterprise placement year came about primarily because something Phil mentioned earlier about we limit the generic enterprise placement year places to 2. So either individuals or partnerships. What became apparent with games development, Huddersfield has a fantastic reputation. It was a really early adopter in the games development courses, was that we were getting more and more games developers coming through. And actually, it's a very different model to most of the other businesses that we would normally deal with on a day-to-day basis. So the first year, we worked very much in tandem with the school in developing this along the way as well. So games development became our sector-specific enterprise placement year. The first year, we had 3 companies come through. One of those went on to get a publishing deal. Just briefly to say, one of the other big issues, they need around 4 to 5 people often if they're going to create any kind of major game, because there are different roles within it. Production is obviously the main side of their business that they're going to spend a lot of time on. So they need a variety of skills. They need people to do the architect of the game, to create the blueprints of the game, to do the artwork, to do the programming. So there's lots of different skills required to actually get to the stage where you've got something you can market and trade. That's not going to happen on day one, even if they've been doing work, as is often the case, on their course on a game. It's going to take them a long time to get to the stage where they've got something that's a marketable model or a vertical slice, as I believe the term. I'm also learning all the terminology. So we realised that there was an opportunity here to do something different. So the first year we had 3 companies. One of the things I love about games development companies is their names. Their brand names are always absolutely mind-blowing and very strange. And one of the companies, Fire Blanket, actually got investment through a publisher that year. It's very similar to if you think of the music business. If you don't know much about gaming, it's kind of how the music business has always been. You need to get your album together, which is the game, and then you need to find a record company who will sign you and invest in you and give you the support you need to get it out there. So where was I? So so Fire Blanket had a real success, suspended their final year, and this is an issue somebody else asked about. If you're really successful and you don't necessarily want to go straight back into university, what do you do? We've got a very good relationship with the school, and we're discussing with them how to make that even more kind of accommodating for students, because this is, if they're really successful and they get a publisher, they don't want to come back and go straight back into the kind of traditional academic situation. So we're currently in talks with the school at looking at maybe developing a 2-year part-time ending to their degree, so they can dovetail their work, which obviously is what they want to do anyway, with their business. So it kind of comes together. So that's the way we are at the moment, Bob. The first year we had 3 companies. That was the pilot year. We were very much testing it out, seeing what worked, what didn't work, how we could accommodate them and get the most out of the system for them. The second year we didn't promote it, and we only had 1 company come through that year. The current cohort, we've got 5 companies. 3 of them are groups and 2 are individuals. I've been here about a year, I think it was, when I met up with Fire Blanket for a follow-up conversation, because often when they've finished an enterprise placement year, we actively encourage all the students to go on to our other program, which is enterprise support, which is obviously they carry on with their studies, but they can keep their business ticking over as well. So I had a meeting with Fire Blanket, and 4 great guys have been working really, really hard to get this game published. They've got investment, they've got everything they needed. But we had a really, open conversation, and they said the thing is, we loved it and we learned loads on EPY, but we felt that you didn't quite get the games sector, and there wasn't quite a specific sort of support we needed. So I was quite intrigued by this. So I think it's always really good to, in your own job, to carry on learning things. So I said to Phil, I'd quite like to get under the skin of this games development side of things, find some contacts, try and kind of make it more appropriate for them. And I think that's one of the reasons why this year's cohort has been so exciting, and we've learned so much more. We've also brought in, and you'll hear a bit more about this later, but we've also brought in around just under £50,000 of the funding direct to the students' businesses, and that's for developing their games, and that's from Creative England and UK Games Fund. So I think that's quite a phenomenal amount of money.
Did the university bring that in, or did the individual student businesses apply for it?
What happened was, I think this idea of me getting to know the sector and finding out what was out there, I was then able to encourage our companies to go for it directly and support them in that process. And it's really interesting because they're all expecting graduates, these companies. They're sort of a bit shocked when they're actually current students who are going for the funding. But yeah, it was sort of a partnership approach between myself and the companies and the funding providers. What else do we need to say about that? Have I missed anything, Fred?
Just the sort of the added value with the sector-specific mentor, or is that the next slide?
That's the next slide, yeah. So we'll go on to tell you what the differences are in a practical sense now.
Yeah.
Hand over to Catherine for that bit.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. So that's the rationale and the history of Enterprise Placement Year. Phil talked earlier about what the components for the generic Enterprise Placement Year are. So those are down the left-hand side in your notes. And on this side, these are the things that the sector-specific variant includes. So first of all, on a very practical point, they get high-spec hardware and software so that they can operate professionally. And all that's in the DOYEC, the Duke of York Centre down the corridor. They also get, really importantly, a sector-specific mentor. And as I'm starting to interview the students and therefore get information that will help identify potential candidates for innovations over the coming year, this mentorship is coming out as really important in two ways, really. Of course, the kind of current industry knowledge, networks, and insights, but also for some students, it's this having a sense of accountability to somebody in the industry that they really respect. So some of these students have they're meeting people from the industry whose games or game studios they've played themselves, and therefore even if they're in a bit of a slump and they're struggling to do work for themselves, this idea of doing it for Simon is something that's come up in conversations. We're also, this year, have been facilitating and I'm exploring how that sector-specific collaboration works. So this year, there's been collaboration between Ocean Spark, who are at the back, and another company called Torchbearer, who provided programming capacity to the team. In the HEFKI Catalyst project that we're doing over the coming year, we're adding in music students as another kind of sector-specific variant experiment. And it's interesting to see, and Zach talked to me about this yesterday, to what extent if you put people together, will they work together? Or are you choosing who you want to work with anyway? So that's something that we'll explore over the coming year, to what extent you can facilitate that. And then these points here just demonstrate the deeper involvement between the enterprise team and the school that the students come from. So the recruitment process for sector-specific very much involves the school. They're involved in the interviews, they're involved in selection. There is input from academics for the sector, from that sector-related discipline for the students, and also there is a financial and in-kind contribution from the school in terms of this programme. So they're providing the capacity of the academics, and there's a fee per student, and they're also paying for the equipment as well. So the school is a big contributor there. So there's some of the practical elements of the sector-specific variant. I think we're going to meet some students who are involved in it.
Yeah, one of the things that Catherine mentions here is that we jointly recruit with the school. So we have an interview panel, which is myself as the sort of industry person now. It's the placement officer from the school, and it's an academic from their school. So the three of us interview as a panel. And last year it was fascinating because, as I said, the first year we had 3, the second year we had 1, and the third year we had huge interest because we promoted it more heavily. We also had the success of the earlier companies that helped build the momentum. So we had lots and lots of applications. And the first group who came in to be interviewed, I don't know how many of you watch X Factor, but I actually felt like Simon Cowell, when somebody walks in and they, wow, That was these guys who you're going to meet now. So they came in, they were so focused, they were so clear what they wanted to achieve in that year. And I think when you hear their story and you actually get to meet them, you might understand why. So, Ocean Spark, if you want to come to the front. So we've got Zach leading the way, then Helen, then Dan, and then Ellie's at the back. Over to you guys.
Thank you.
Let me just load this up. Can I just minimise
Oh,
this?
yeah, sorry. Okay, out your way.
Where's my mouse?
I'll move over here. So I'll just talk while Helen's playing well. So like Catherine said, we went into the interview for this. The school at the time didn't really tell us much about it. So a lot of students kind of took it as in, oh well, why is this better than going into industry itself and taking that aspect of it? But for myself, and I know for these guys too, like creating their own business, it's something I've always wanted to do. So when I found out this opportunity were here to be able to actually come into this and create something off my own back and know I've got the support there if we need it to actually try and make something of ourselves now before we actually finish uni was just an amazing idea. The fact that we could actually do that, and I'll say it right now, this has been the most incredible year of my life, straight up. The amount of stuff we've achieved and the amount I've grown as a person, and as a team we've just come together and grown so much together. It has just been phenomenal. So
Yeah, so just a brief history of us really. We formed in our second year. We knew that enterprise placement interview was a thing. So we decided to just kind of get in early. So after Christmas, during our second year, we said, right, we're going to go for this enterprise placement interview, but let's be prepared. So we kind of formed as a team, not so much as a business, but as a team of 4 to prepare a little prototype game and brand ourselves as a team. So we knew that obviously a lot of teams were going for this interview, but they only had a certain amount of places to offer. So as a team, we've been together for over a year. But we've been working on the product that we're working on now, which is a video game, since August. So 8 months, 9 months. Registered as a business in December. We recently received £23,000 in funding from Creative England. Haven't got that yet, it's going through, but that's going to enable us as a team now to be self-funded for the next 6 months. So as Catherine mentioned, we're going to defer our final year at university for at least another year. To make a game can take from a year to 3 to 4 years, depending on the size of the game that you're making. So being able to secure funding as a team is really vital because we like to eat. So this is our trailer for the game that we're making. It's only 2 minutes long, just so you can get a rough idea of what we've made. We've actually been making this that you're going to see now for 4 months. In terms of games, this is quite a lot. We've literally been in the office space. It's provided to us day in, day out, and having that available to us even on weekends means that we can just get together as a team. When you're making a game, it's really vital that you're all together and your ideas kind of mash to make something. Do you know what I don't know.
Countless years have passed since the world of Ataria fell silent. Kingdoms fell, and civilization collapsed into what seemed like the depths of hell. Creatures rose from the darkness, devouring anything that stood in their way, gradually taking over the land. The people began to lose faith and started to believe in nothing but darkness. But with it, the darkness brought hope. 4 guardian races were born and blessed the world with their presence.
The Xelon race are born within the fiery volcano of Xelon. Made from resilient rock and powered with fire, heat, and lava, they deal brutal damage and can take heavy blows. Born from the sands, the Dremorian have become familiar with earth elements, creating a hybrid of crafted poisons with elements of wind, air, and dust. These creatures have created the ultimate element to blind and inflict illness on their foes. The humans exist deep within the bitter icy mountains, crafting destructive weaponry and armor. They have become one with the ice and are known for their deadly ranged weapons, causing Arctic devastation at a distance. The Nyrixi race are quiet, peaceful, and protective. Born in the forest, they use nature as their element, wielding their bow and arrow to keep their distance, whilst casting a watchful eye over their allies should anyone need their healing assistance. Take control of all 4 Guardians, each with their own unique elemental power and distinct combat style. Switch between Guardians at any time to take advantage of their abilities and become the ultimate elemental force. It's time that the Guardians rose together and showed the world their existence.
This is your story, Guardian. Now go. Make history.
So that's what we've been working on.
How did you get Phil to do the voice?
You stole my joke, Catherine.
Ruined it now. I think the best thing about having a placement year like this is you're not looking at what's happening. Should I start talking epic? So you're not just watching a manager of a company handle things. So if I went into an industry placement and essentially the way games design works is they don't want students to work on something when they've got professionals who've done it years, you'll just be a T-boy essentially, or T-girl. So being able to come into this and actually go our own ways, and like we've looked at it, so the people we've met, so the music guy we know, it's called Chris Haig, he's really big, he's worked on Star Wars and all these massive films, and it's like we've managed to go out and make these links that no one else in our class has done, because it's nothing they've had to think about, whereas we've had to come into this and think, right, this is what we want to do, this is where the destination we want to get to, how we're going to get there, and through that we've gone to 3 different events so far, London, Birmingham and Leeds, and they've all, majority of them have been like 30,000 people, 100,000 people, and it's really helped us meet other people in the industry. And the first one we went to in London, which were in March, straight away we've spoke to some huge companies, and for us to be involved in that, we walked in feeling like little nobodies, but we've come out feeling like that's it, we're in the industry straight away like that, so it's been amazing.
So I'm just going to talk maybe a little bit more about the support that we've received. So when I first started, I mean, probably the same for these guys as well, is I thought, okay, I know what I want to do, I want to build a game, but I never even took into consideration everything else that came with that, such as like planning, budgeting, cash flow forecasting, all this we learned from EPUI. And because they're just there, they're sat right next to us, we're in the same office space. It's brilliant because if you have a problem, you're unsure about anything, go straight to them, ask them, they're there straight away, they're always welcoming.
Or if you're just shower them.
Or shower them.
Which isn't appreciated.
And through that, because we got, it's called Proof of Concept, where we got some money to go to these events so we could fund ourselves to go. We met some amazing people there. There were people coming around, little publishers that were looking at us going, okay, this is cool. And we'd have never had that opportunity prior to this. And we wouldn't be able to afford it because we work part-time jobs where the money's not great. And to do this and have people like kind of support us in that way, and then kind of give us that opportunity and confidence through it, means that we can go and experience all these things like Zach said, where we can go and meet all these people, publishers, voice actors, music people, that just help us with the game and really push it on.
Businesses kind of bounce off of the enterprise team, so they help you get to where you are, and because of that, we're so grateful when we talk to people. We're like, this is the team that's helped us, this is what they can offer, which for them has brought in people coming to them and offering them things, and it helps them grow then, so them helping us grow helps them grow, so it's like it's continuously bouncing off each other, and then they get to meet people from our industry. So like Catherine were talking about earlier, she's got to know multiple people from Creative England and things like that, and then when we've met them, they've already heard of us, and it gives you that kind of edge above other people that are maybe doing this off their own back, or if they're just going into industry and they're not really doing that kind of thing. So yeah, it's great that you can bounce off each other so well.
One thing I'll say with regards to being sector specific, What makes us different from other businesses set up in the Duke of York Centre is essentially we're going to make no money as a business for what could be up to 3 years. So funding is really vital. So if you're going to have sector-specific, especially game-specific groups on your placement year, you need to be able to make them aware of the funding that's available. Thankfully, we became aware of Creative England and UK Games Fund quite early on. They tend to do rounds, so Creative England have a pot of money, let's say, for the year, and they'll offer 3 rounds of applications to apply for this funding. If you miss it, you can end up with nothing for the year. So the 23,000 we managed to go for, and that we've obtained, not yet, but we have got it, is the last round. If we'd have missed out on that by a few weeks, we'd now be going back to our final year, because it becomes really hard to support yourself as a gaming company. There's things we need to outsource that we haven't got as part of a team. So often the businesses in there, they can set up and more or less make their products on their own. We really can't, so we've had to pay, as Zach mentioned, a composer to do our music. We need to start thinking about how we're going to pay for voice actors to do the voice acting in the game. Marketing a game can take up a huge chunk of money to get your game seen at events and on websites. So making sure that you're aware of the funding before your students start the year, so they can always have a list in front of them so they know what they're applying for. We kind of went into it a little bit blindly in the sense that we didn't know what there was, but we got really lucky, so we haven't missed out. But I think next year you guys will know, won't you, exactly what you've got.
Just interrupt, so Rob Crossley, who's the Creative England Games Development kind of manager of the fund, I saw him present at an event, a networking event I went to, and he said, the thing is, this country is absolutely brilliant at creating games. We're world class, we do everything brilliantly. What we're missing is business and marketing skills. That's what they're lacking when they come to us and put in into the applications. So I go back and say to the guys here, right, this is what you need to focus on. And they got to meet Rob when they did a big expo down in London. And how did he describe you guys?
It would blown away. Like, we just sat down, we spoke to him about everything that we want to do, and he just sat there looking at us like, and we were like, oh, have we done something wrong? And it was just like, I've never met anyone so passionate about what they're doing. And they were like, I just want to offer you this money straight up like that. And we were like, okay. I was like trying to hold back a tear, like pretending it's cool, like, yeah.
But they were so professional. They had their branded T-shirts, they had their goodie bags for him, they had their pitch absolutely polished. They knew what buttons to press, and they went and did it. And yeah, amazing.
But we wouldn't have been able to do that without being on this year. Definitely not. Like, even just putting together something like an elevator pitch, going into this year, I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know that you almost had to be prepped on tap to tell someone what you're making. We had no idea even how to start on one of those.
Like Dan said, you come in thinking, we're going to make a game, cool, but then there's all the other stuff that you have to think about. And then when you start seeing money might be involved, publishers might be involved, and they might be offering you £500,000, and you're like, oh dear, where do I put this money now? And you have to make it make sense to them, and then you've got to look professional. And I think the fact that we are still students, when we've gone to these people, they've been so shocked. Sometimes you think, will it put them off that we're students? But at the same time, because of what you've achieved already in such a short amount of time, makes them so amazed that they're like, maybe we're onto something here. Like,
and I don't know if you guys would agree, but I think a big part of what we offer on EPY, probably the same for you as well, Linda, is we're providing the vocabulary of business and the commercial world. So you're able to go and talk to people confidently and understand what they're talking about. And they talk just things like turnover and balance sheets and all that financial stuff. You just need to have an understanding. You don't need to be expert at it, but I think the overview of the year just gives you all those little extra.
Yeah. Even just for us, registering as a limited company, like, I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know how to do it, and it's daunting, isn't it, when you read all this stuff and you're like, oh, you're liable for this, this and this as a director of a company. If I was sat at home and decided to take a year out to set up my business with these four, not on this year, something like that, you can think, well, hang on a minute, am I doing this right, and what are the implications if this goes wrong? Yeah, so it's just nice to be able to sit down with someone who understands what all that means and break it down for someone who doesn't understand what that means, and give us
And I
clearer
think
mind.
the other thing that I think is really interesting about all EPY stuff is the things that I've been to, the general stuff about enterprise and employability through enterprise, is they're talking about graduate startups. And what's really exciting about enterprise placement year is we're talking about student startups, and these guys have proved you don't have to wait until you've got the piece of paper to go out and do this. It's all part of the same
Yeah, this is set us up now, like
experience.
the people we know, the places we've been, and the fact that in our industry we are known and we've sort of made ripples and people have heard about us. It's just put us out there, and that straight away we're involved in the industry. Whereas without this, we'd have still just been a nobody at a university waiting to finish the degree to have some paper to then be like, there's a big wide world, where do I start? Whereas now we know where we started and we're already expanding out into that world, which is, I love it.
It's amazing. We have such a strong baseline, as Zach says, and when we were at these events and stuff, they had big companies coming up to us, people that have been doing this for 3-4 years and going, wow, you're marketing, how did you do this? How did they were learning from what we'd learned from the EPY team. So the fact that these people have probably done it on their own and gone that route, and we've done it in this in probably in a year, they took 4 years, so we've managed to do the same kind of level of marketing, and they're learning from us in a year while they pull into 4. So yeah, we've grown definitely massively as people in terms of business and skills to develop the game, because we've learned a lot from that.
I think in terms of the skills as well, one thing that I only found out this morning was that when we went to EGX, which was the big show in London, they had so much interest, but loads and loads of people playing the game, and they've now done lots of different stuff based on the feedback, which is, again, is I think is so professional. And so you're not kind of saying, here it is, it's finished, love it or not. Do you know what I mean? It's been part of the evolution of the game.
The question on the testing, I'm just really interested in how you test the products and how you get into the hearts and the spirit of the user. So
the main thing for us has been events. So we went to EGX in London, which had a footfall of around 30,000. Every person that sat down to play it, we added to our mailing list. So we spent about 62,000 hours making up these goodie bags, which Ellie's going to give you one when we finish talking. I kid you not, our hands were bleeding. We made key rings, leaflets, and put together little goodie bags that people could take away, take home. The leaflets included more about us as a company, why we were so passionate, what we plan to do in the future, little key rings that hopefully people keep. And I think the most important piece of information was taking away people's personal emails that showed an interest in the game. So we gave them the option. We said, look, we're only 4 months into the development of the game. This is where we plan on taking it, but if you're interested, you can leave your email. With that email, we've actually only been back from our latest event about 10 days, so we still need to type them all up into a big mailing list. And with that, we're going to send them the copy of the game that we have now. And we're making the game based on community feedback, so the feedback we then get from those players who download it and play it will continue to develop. But Yorkshire in general has got a really, really massive game development community. So we were at an event in Leeds, it's called Gameo, which is Game Makers of Yorkshire, and essentially it's 300 to 400 game developers who come to play test other people's games. So being able to show it on a screen, get people who make games sit down and play it and rip it to shreds is unfortunately what you have to do. So it's our little baby, but we do get criticism on it and we do get feedback, so we make it based on what people say about it. It's hard to get feedback and genuine feedback, because sometimes people just, because they like you, tell you what they think you want to hear, and say, oh, it's great.
Sometimes if people don't like you, they'll try and bring you down to the floor, which can happen if there's other teams out there. Like, I won't go into detail, but we met this one guy in particular, and good God, I've never met anyone like it. He was just trying to pull us down to the floor, this one singular guy, and then he's bumped into so many times. He would come back every day to each event to sit down and be like, this is what I do. You do know I want to be put onto the games design panel to say I've worked on your game. What, for playing at an event? It was just doing his best to try and upset and bring you down, but you like, when you're part of this, you learn that there is people out there that are like that, and there's very few, but there is people, so you kind of learn to take it on the chin and just deal with it how you do.
we've got a few minutes for questions, Phil.
That's a question.
Can I ask about contact with your tutors? So if do you spend more time with the business support enterprise tutors or with the technical aspects of it? If you were to sort of put it into 100%, would it be 50-50?
It's kind of a strange one, really. Since moving, that's literally our building behind you there, where we spent our first and second year at university, to moving over here, we've barely seen the tutors on our course. And I think the reason they do that is when you're making a game, sometimes feedback from people who know you as students is not what you need, because we've essentially changed our art style completely to what they've been teaching us at university, and sometimes you can kind of get mixed opinions on your game, which can just really you can hit obstacle after obstacle. Sometimes you just need to break away from your course tutors. And the sector-specific mentor that we've got is a guy called Simon from Red Kite Games, who are actually based in this building. Simon's got his own game studio, they make AAA games, and he's actually in a studio in industry now, whereas the tutors who've been teaching on our course haven't been in the industry in a studio for some of them 10 years. So I think you can often get very different opinions from them based on how you're running your studio as a business and if what you're making as a product is a viable and relatable product in the industry now. So I think having Simon, who is in the industry and has experience with hiring and firing staff, artists, audio, to sit down and play our game and be like, okay, this is what you're doing wrong, can sometimes be, to us, seem more valued as an opinion because what he's doing is more relevant.
I think, I don't know as well, would you think, going back to that analogy around the music business, these guys, this is their creative endeavour. You know, if they were writing their own music, they wouldn't go to the tutor. You might ask them some technical questions and you get technical input, but it's very much their thing. And that's what we're kind of celebrating and kind of packaging up with.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
We do have a tutor come around called Matt, so he comes around and sees us every Wednesday as well, just to sit with us for 15 minutes, half an hour, and just go over what we've done in that. And he kind of helps teams that maybe are pushing themselves to just sort of keep them on track and stuff like that.
Would it make it difficult going back into your final year?
Yeah, will be amazing. Yeah, it will. Depending on the success of the game, what's difficult for us now is the people that we've grown with in the first and second year and who are even on this placement year with us now in their own team, they've decided to go back to their final year. We're not, so we know instantly when we go back to our final year, we're going to be sat in a room full of students that we don't know. And being a games designer, that's quite difficult because you get to know these people and know their skills and know who you can go to, who knows X, Y, and Z about a piece of 3D software you might not know. So in a sense, that's making it difficult for us already to think we've got to go back to final year with a group of students we don't know. And obviously if we're successful, which hopefully we are, there's that kind of decision, and a lot of people, you get mixed opinions in the industry. A lot of people who we meet at events are like, well, I'd hire you based on the fact that you've made a game, and other people are like, well, I'd hire you based on your degree. So it's kind of not knowing what to do. Do we go out of this?
You're thinking about doing the joint as the final year?
As I mentioned earlier, the ideal scenario, and I think this is, you know, the economic advantage for the country to do this, is that you actually dovetail the two, because why, if they're successful in doing what they've intended to do at university, why would they then have to take a backward step? So the school are really, really interested in kind of developing this final sort of 3 and 4 year kind of part-time model, so it's not that decision they have to make, and we're getting really good signals from the school that they're
Absolutely.
happy
We'd love to be able to say to these guys that that's on offer for this year. Realistically, because of the, as I'm sure you're aware, academics, the process of readapting modules and having them accredited, it's probably likely it'll be next year's cohort that benefit from that. But a lady here was very anxious to answer a question.
Yeah,
and
I found your answer. And I can see you're running a Kickstarter campaign for some of your funding. And I was just wondering how you're finding the process of that very self-driven Kickstarter model.
We're not going to hit, to put it bluntly.
It were a massive learning curve, so it's something we've never looked at. We didn't even think about how much marketing went into it. We met other teams at these events who, after 2 weeks it Kickstarter running, when we got like $3,000, we were like, oh, it's going so well, it's $3,000, that's loads of money to us. But these events, these other teams were obviously big industry teams who have said, we've had marketing teams working on it 3 months solidly. We work on our game, they work on that. Whereas me and Dan worked on the Kickstarter at the same time as working on the game, so it's like that limited us. But although we've done this now, it's not something we regret because we've learned about it, and from that we've got people interested from different countries. And I think although I can say we went at it too early in the sense of we didn't have enough to show to make people want to crowdfund that. But in a sense, we didn't go in too early because it's helped us now prepare for when we actually really do want to go for this in 6 months. And we have multiple islands and levels and voice acting and music, and it's all grand and massive. That'll just show to people, God, this is where they've gone from 4 months' work into an extra 6 months on top. Maybe if we do fund this, then that'll help them grow more. So
yeah, like this definitely won't be the last time we try self-funding and crowdfunding, because like I said, we learned so much from it, and we got the contact from that as well. And just people we spoke to there who'd done it previously, who'd been in the company, said we failed it the first time as well, but then the second time we got back up, we did it again, we did it better with more content, and we hit it. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing too.
Thank you very much.
I know I'm always stopping you asking questions. I'm really sorry. Just in the interest of time, we're going to move into lunch, but I think you're staying for lunch? Ocean Spark is staying for lunch. So if you want to quiz them, you can quiz them still further.
Still students at home.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, after lunch, we've got 4 businesses coming from the generic programme at different stages. Some are current, some have graduated, some are in 4th year. So we'll be doing a question and answer from that perspective as well. But I think, am I right, we're free now till 1 o'clock for lunch? If Nick and Stacey want to grab you for a little soundbite, I hope you'll say a few words to them about how it's going, talk to Ocean Spark, and have a nice lunch, and we'll see you back here at 1.